Hi, I'm Nene and this is the tutorial for Arch a Bag. Se stai cercando il video in italiano, lo trovi qui. Arch a Bag exists in crochet and knitting. This is the tutorial for the knitted version. You can customize Arch a Bag in many ways. You can make the body of the bag bigger or smaller, you can make the strap longer or shorter, and of course you can decorate as you wish. You can add patches, you can add a carabiner, you can add embroidery, and you can add lining on the inside, you can add a zip to close it up, you can add some buttons. I would recommend Arch a Bag for an adventurous beginner, or if this isn't your first project, but maybe your second or third. Anyways, all the passages for this bag will be explained in this video. If you are an absolute beginner looking for an easy and quick project you can make, I recommend the crochet version. You can find a video tutorial for that too in my channel, and it explains everything you need to know to make it. If you want, you can download the PDF instructions on Ravelry. I'll leave you the link in the description so you can follow along with the written instruction as the video goes on. These are the materials needed for this bag. A knitting needle of 5mm or bigger or smaller depending on your yarn. The yarn you want to use for this bag. Some stitch markers, at least 4, possibly different ones. Some measuring tape, a tapestry needle, and a scissor. If you have all these materials, let's start. To make this bag, you will need some yarn. I use 100% drops Paris cotton, but even if you're using other types of yarn or scrap yarn, of course you can make it. With this yarn, I work with 5mm needles. In my case, they are interchangeable needles with a circular cable, but you can also make this bag with straight needles or needle. You will need a scissor to cut the yarn, some stitch markers. I recommend at least 3 different ones, and at the end of the I also recommend you have some measuring tape on hand that we will use to measure the bag as we make it. The pattern proposes 2 dimensions for the bag, but if you want, you can also make it with your own custom measurement. Let's get started. I have already prepared my ball of yarn in a cake, so it's easier to take it, and we start with 12 stitches on the needle. We cast on the stitches with the long tail method, but you can choose the method you prefer. The long tail method is made like this. Take the end cut of the yarn long enough to cast the number of stitches. Usually you try to measure about triple of what you expect of number of stitches. In this case we want just 12 stitches, so we don't need a particularly long tail. And we're gonna keep the yarn this way in a triangular shape. So the cut yarn, I turn it over the thumb, I continue on my index fingers. It is stopped between the middle and index finger, and then this is the yarn that joins the cake. I keep it still with the ring finger and the little finger in order to form a triangle between my fingers. We then take the upper yarn with our needle and the lower yarn in this way. So we pass it inside the loop, making this movement. It's a bit difficult to explain in words, but there are many videos that explains it, and I hope showing it is the best thing. And there are also alternative methods on how to cast on. So once the first 2 stitches are casted, you can see them on the needle, these 2 eyelets. Now we have on one side the yarn of the skein and the other one the one cut. I'm gonna keep them in this triangle shape, but now in the middle of the triangle we have the needle with the stitches, and all the other stitches are done in this way, taking the yarn from the first side, taking from the second side and passing it under the thumb and then pulling. And here is the 3rd stitch, the 3rd eyelet on the needle, and so all the next one. When you have 12 stitches, if you are a beginner, my advice is to tie the cut tail, make a knot on it, tie it to yourself, attach to it a stitch marker, anything, so that you remember that this is not the yarn that you will work in the next rows, because that's a very common mistake for beginners. So I knot it on itself so that I remember that I will not work this thread. Now we turn the needle, which is held by a non-dominant hand, and in this case left, and we start working with our second needle. The first row is very simple because we want to work all in knit stitches and keep 2 stitch markers close by because we will need them. So to work the knit stitch, we will bring all the stitches from the left needle to the right needle while we stitch them. So with my right needle, we pass from front to back on my first eyelet. I turn around it the yarn and I take it with me on the front. So I make the first stitch slip. I repeat the step, so from front to back, I take the yarn with me and I make the stitch slip. And again, I keep the yarn with my left hand, but I know that there are many people who like to hold it with their right hand too. It's not a problem, you can make it in the same way, so you bring the needle from front to back, you turn around the needle, the yarn, you create another stitch and you make it slip down the needle. After 4 stitches, stop. We take the stitch marker and we slip it on the needle after 4 stitches. Now we make 4 more stitches, always knitting. And after 4 stitches, we take the second stitch marker and slip it on the needle. After the second stitch marker, we want to knit 2 stitches, and then before the last 2 stitches, we want to bring the yarn from behind the work towards the front, this way. And the last 2 stitches, we do not work them, but we let them slip, passing our needle from the back to the front of the front-facing eyelet and let it slip. The work will appear like this. These stitch markers are particularly important because they will remind us that every time we've knit them, something needs to be done. So when we find one, we will remember to make increases, and then on the bag there will be decreases. At this moment, they are put every 4 stitches, so 4 stitches, stitch marker, 4 stitches, stitch marker, 4 stitches. So we turn the work. Now we have the needle with the stitches on the non-dominant hand, in my case is the left one, and we are working the stitches toward the right needle. These first 2 stitches, even if I have the yarn that points toward the back, they are still worked as normal knit stitches, so 1 and 2. But by making them flow in this way, they will create a cord along the edge of the bag that is called an I-cord. We work other 2 stitches and then we find the first stitch marker. When we find a stitch marker, a bell must ring inside our hand, and we have to say, okay, this stitch marker, what do we have to do? In this first one, we will make an increase for the first part of the bag. So, before making the stitch marker slip, we want to increase the work of 1 stitch. The first stitch marker we have towards our dominant hand, our right side head, will be an M1R, so an increase that's leaning on the right side. In our case, we raise this bar between the 2 stitches with our needle, so from the back we take it from the back toward the front and we raise it this way. And once raised, we work it as a normal knit stitch, so we insert the needle from the front toward the back, taking the yarn and pull it forward. Now we have 5 stitches on the right needle, and we can slip the stitch marker we have made an increase. We work the central stitches normally, just by knitting them. And when we find the stitch marker on the left, we make it slip before making the increase, so that the central stitches remain always 4. The increases are placed on one side and on the other to the stitch markers. So on this side we want to make an increases that leans towards the left, so we are going to take the bar between the 2 stitches. We will make an M1L, an increase on the left side. With the needle, we take the bar from the front towards the back, in this case, and we want to insert the right needle, yes, on the front toward the back eye, but on the back side of the eyelet. Instead of taking the side, the more on your side, you're going to take the back side. Then we take the yarn towards us, we pull it and work 2 stitches. We stop before the last 2 stitches and we remember to bring the yarn on the front, and the last 2 stitches we're gonna make them slip without working them in a purlwise manner. So bringing the needle from the back towards the front and making it slip without working it. Here we are. In this row we have 5 stitches, stitch mark, 4 stitches, stitch mark, 5 stitches. This row where we have just made the increases will be the beautiful side of the work, the right side. So from now on, this will be the side where we want to make all the increases, while on the other side, no. To remind us of this thing, you can take a 3rd stitch marker. If you don't have one, you can also use earrings or rings. In my case, I use a special stitch marker with my cat Tabatat on it. And what I ask you to do is put this stitch marker attached to one of the stitches, so not on the needles, so it will remind you that this side is the right side of the work. We will move this stitch marker with us as we work the row, so that we always remember this side. Now we turn the work. We are on the reverse side now, and we know because there is no stitch marker here. And the reverse is super easy because we want to work all the stitches, knitting them, moving the stitch marker when we knit them without a bell ringing in our heads. We slip them and that's it. And the only thing to remember is when we knit the last 2 stitches on the row, we are gonna not work them and move the thread on front. We turn the work again. Now we are back on the right side of the work where we have our special stitch marker. So on this side we want to make increases before and after we knit the stitch markers. So let's go. When we find the first stitch marker on the right side, we are gonna make an increase leaning to the right. Then we slip the stitch marker, we work the 4 central stitches normally. we slip the second stitch marker and then we make an increase leaning to the left, which is the special increase because the needle goes on the back of the stitch eyelet. We work our stitches until we find the last two of the row, and we bring the yarn to the front and we slip the last two stitches purlwise. So here we are. We turn our work again, and now what we want to do is repeat these two rows. So when we are on the side where we don't have a stitch marker, the back of the work, we work all the stitches knitting them without any ring bell, and when we are on the straight side, so with our special stitch marker, we want to make our increases before and after the stitch markers. Always remember on each side to not work the last two stitches, but to bring the yarn in front and to slip them purlwise. So this will create a nice beautiful edge, the I cord. You can kind of see it now. And when we will stop working the increases? Here's where the measuring tapes comes in play, or even a ruler is okay. What we want to do is measure the center, so between the two stitch markers, the first stitches that are the center of the work, and depending on the length, you can create smaller or longer bags. In my case, I want to make a small bags, so for the small styles, I will stop when I reach 13 centimeters. So I will now continue to make rows back and forth and put increases until I reach 13 centimeters of length measured here on the central part. I'm back, I've made some rows, and I wanted to show you how laterally this formation is forming, which is called the I cord. It's a really beautiful finishing. And now that I have made some rows, it is also a good time for me to move the special stitch marker a little higher so that it's more visible when I turn the work. So here it is, I carried it with me as I go up, so that you always remember that this is the right side of the work, the front, where you make the increases. On this side, on the other end, we don't make any increases, we just knit the work. Here we are, I have made increases until I reached 13 centimeters. We measure them together, here they are. I make sure I have finished working on a row from the wrong side, and therefore to be with the needle and be looking at the right side, so the side with a special stitch marker. What we're doing now is gonna be the bottom of the bag. The one we just made was a side practically, and for convenience I advise you, if you have it, to put another stitch marker, possibly different from the one we already used, on the last row you made that was part of the increases, so that now when you go working on, you can carry the special one behind, and when we measure, you can measure from the one we just put on the last row of the increases. And from this point, you work all the stitches with a knit stitch every time you make a row. You always stop before the last two stitches to bring the yarn in front with you and make the slip instead of working them, but you continue for the length you want. I am making a small bag, so I will work 13 centimeters of body. If you are making a large bag or you are making a custom size, obviously follow your size. Knit all stitches on the right and on the wrong side of the work. We'll meet again when we have made the body of the bag, so this flat part. It's totally fine if this starts to curve inwards. Don't worry, keep working. I have worked all of these rows without making any increases, so if you're working on a straight needle, this can be a little bit curved. On the circular cable, I can still flatten it enough to let you see, and I did the same measure that I had done before in the portion with the increases. Now I have done for what will be the bottom of the bag. So if I take the measuring tape and I measure from the last stitch marker we had positioned on the last increase row, I have arrived at 13 centimeters without increases. As last time, I want to finish where I have the special stitch marker on front. so that the next row can already be a working row where we will be making decreases. We are going before to move the stitch marker. Now we have finished using it, we no longer need it on this stitch. We are going to put it on the last row worked with just knit stitches, and from now on we are going to make some decreases. So we are on the right side of the work with the special stitch marker. We are going to work all the stitches and we are going to stop 2 stitches before the stitch marker in the center. We are going to make a decrease, so we want to work together 2 stitches and make a single stitch out of them. In this case we have our first stitch marker, the one a little bit more towards the right, and also we are going to make a knit 2 together decrease. So we are going to work in 2 stitches like they are 1. It's very simple, it's like doing a simple knit stitch, but instead of doing it in one eyelet, we are gonna work both eyelets. So we bring our needle from the inside both the stitches from front to back, we make our yarn pass on the front and we slip both stitches. So those 2 stitches now have become 1. We slip the stitch marker, we work normally the 4 central stitches, knitting them, and we slip also the second stitch marker. On this side, on the left side, we are gonna make a decrease on the left side. So the decrease we are going to use is an SSK, that means slip, slip, knit. In this case, it is performed like this. We slip this stitch as if we wanted to work it, so knit-wise, the needle from front to back, but I don't bring any yarn on front, I just make it slip, and the second one too. These 2 are the 2 slips, so slipping the stitches without working them. And after slip, slip, the third is a knit. So we insert the left needle onto the right, taking both 2 stitches this way, and we are going to bring the yarn in front, joining the 2 stitches. So here they are, 2 stitches have become a single one. Again, we work to the end of the row, stopping 2 stitches before the end. And when there are only 2 stitches left on the needle, we bring the yarn in front and we slip the 2 stitches purlwise without working them. We turn our work. We are now on the wrong side without a special stitch marker, so this will be a row of only knit stitches. We will work all the stitches, slipping the stitch markers without doing anything until the end of the row, until the last 2 stitches of the row. We turn the work, we are again on the front side with our special stitch marker, and this means we have another row of decreases. So we work up to 2 stitches before our first stitch marker. Here we will join them by working them knit together normally, but with 2 eyelets. We work 4 stitches, we move the stitch marker, and we work the 2 after it with slip, slip, knit. Now, for the decreases, you can stop when measuring the portion that will be made, and it will be the same length as the one we worked on the bottom and on the increases side. But a simpler method is, in my opinion, to consider that we are gonna make the decreases until we have 12 stitches left. So we decrease on one side and on the other until we have the same number of stitches we had starting on the cast on. So we are going to have 4 stitches before the first stitch marker, 4 central stitches, and then 4 stitches after the second stitch marker for a total of 12 stitches, as the one we casted on when we begin our bag. Just a little bonus, I finished a yarn skein and I wanted to show you a little thing. When you join the next yarn skein, whatever your joining method is, I use a flat knot. What we want to do is keep the knot's tail in the wrong side of the work, the side where we do not have the special stitch marker. That will be the inside of our bag. So on our right side we have the special stitch marker, in this case on my front side, so I will keep the yarn tails and the knot on the opposite side of the one I am working right now, because I am working on the front side and I will keep them on the wrong side. Obviously it's going to be the opposite. If you are joining and you are on the wrong side, you have to keep the knots toward you. So I make my knit stitch, here is the knot, and I keep the yarn ends on the back of my work. And I go on working normally with the new joined yarn. At the end of the project, at the end of the bag, we are gonna hide the tails inside the bag, but not cut them. We are gonna sew them and hide them. Here we are after making all the decreases and having reached 4 stitches before the marker, 4 stitches between the 2 markers, and 4 stitches after the second marker. Make sure you have finished the last row, not making decreases, so on the wrong side, and you are now watching the right side. The side with the special stitch marker, the side where you made the decreases. Just to check, we are gonna make sure that we have actually worked 30 centimeters. As you can see, for me that is the size for the small bag, and as I said before, if you are making a bigger bag of other sizes, you can check your size if you want to. If we fold the bag in half, we can see the size and the shape of our bag, of the body of the bag. So we have worked 13 centimeters of increases, 13 of base, and 13 of decreases to create our bag. Now we can remove the marker that showed the last row without increases or decreases. We can remove it, put it aside. And we are going to work one row making just normal knit stitches. So we're going to make the first 4 knit stitches. And now, instead of slipping the marker, we can remove it. We don't need it anymore. We work the 4 central stitches, knitting them. We can remove the second marker also. Instead of slipping it, we can take it off. Work 2 stitches, and again we will always stop between the last 2 stitches, bring the yarn in front and slip them purlwise without working them. So this is now the beginning of what will be our strap for the bag. So continuing to work these 12 stitches back and forth, always keeping the last 2 stitches, passing them without working them, so that the I-cord will continue to grow on the strap of the bag. You can choose the length, you can decide it depending on how you want your bag, you can make it longer or shorter. Keep in mind that this work, this stitch, is very elastic and some yarns can be more elastic than others, so if you're working with different types of yarns, you can evaluate how elastic the stitch can be by trying to pull it and imagining that the bag will hold stuff inside, will have some weight, so when you're wearing it, the strap will be pulled. So in my case, what I count as a 5 centimeter on the bag laying flat, if I pull it, these 5 centimeters can become almost double, almost 10 centimeters. So I will keep this in mind when making the length of the strap, and possibly not make it too long, because I know that when I wear it, it will stretch, it will be elastic, so I will make it a little bit shorter than what maybe I had in mind. So we continue to work all the rows with 12 stitches with normal knit stitch. There are no more increases, no more decreases, there are no more stitch marker to slip. Just pay attention to the last 2 stitches of the row and to make them pass instead of working them. Just be mindful and not remove the special stitch marker that will continue to tell us what the right side of the work is, and that will be the outer side. Even if the inside now, you could have some yarn tails that can tell you to identify the wrong side. Just keep the special stitch marker so it's just easier to tell. So see you again in just a bit. In any moment of the work, at the end of the bag or during, if you want, you can hide the tails by using a tapestry needle or wool needle. This is very simple with this kind of stitch, because what we have to do is just insert the needle on the side where there are the tails, which we know is our wrong side, the inside of the bag. And we're going to insert the needle through some of the loops created. And we drag the yarn with us, and then we can repeat this step again in another direction in order to block it inside the stitches we created. Obviously, if at the end of the bag you want to add accessories such as a zipper, button, or some fabric on the inside, you can avoid this step, and when you have the fabric inside, it's gonna hide everything that's on there, so the yarn tails will just be there and be hidden. But in my opinion, it is still a good practice to always hide all the tails of the yarn you have used and you have joined. Here I am back with a little bit of the strap made and my 12 stitches still on the needle. Just for reference, I made about a little bit more than the length of the bag for the size of the strap, but again, it depends on the yarn and its elasticity. I will measure it for you just in case you are using the exact same type of yarn. So this is about 64 centimeters of strap, but again, if you want, you can make it shorter or longer, total freedom in making the length you want. I did try to put the bag on and wear it and stretch it, and I saw that the bag falls to a good height for my total height of body, so I think I'm ready to close it. Now, to bind it off, you can make it with a wool or tapestry needle, or with a crochet hook, or directly with the needle you are working with. For this video, I will close it with the needle I'm working with, so without removing the stitches from the needle where they are now. I'll start by making sure that the nice side of the bag, the one with our special stitch marker, the one where our strap starts, and the straps are not twisted on itself. we are gonna make the inside match with the inside. So this is the right side, and it continues in what is the right side of the strap. We find ourselves having 12 stitches on the needle and 12 stitches that was our cast on start. Now for a better finished effect that is towards the right side, it's gonna become a practically invisible seam, but I recommend going to overturn the situation. So let's make the right side match with the right side, and we are gonna be looking at the inside of the bag and the inside of the strap. Just to make it easier for you to understand, this is the inside of my bag where I have hid the tails. There are no special stitch marker. I am looking until I find my cast on edge, and there I match the needle with the 12 stitches and the strap, and this will continue until the inside of the bag. So we keep this sandwich of stitches as if we were our left needle, and with the right needle we are gonna work them together. So we are gonna work the stitches we have on the needle with our cast on edge. I take the first stitch, I take the first stitch of the cast on edge, and now that I have both on my needle, I'm gonna pass the yarn through and bring it forward. It can be a little bit difficult on the first stitches, but it's gonna get better. And every time we have 2 stitches on our right hand needle, we are gonna take the one closer to our right hand and slip it over the first one, so we are gonna have just 1 stitch left. So we repeat, we take the stitch from the needle, the stitch from the cast on edge, we pull the yarn on the front, we have 2 stitches on our right hand needle, and so we take the one further back, the one closer to our hand, and we pull it over the first one. And we keep repeating until the end of the line, all 12 stitches. We take the stitch from the needle, the stitch from the cast on edge, we pass the yarn through, and when we have 2 stitches on our right hand needle, we take the one further back and we pass it over the first one, so we have 1 stitch left. If this process is too complicated for you, you can make it with a crochet hook instead. So I suggest you cut the yarn before doing it with a crochet hook, leave a little tail, and follow basically the same steps, but with the crochet hook you're gonna bring the yarn forward. So pass the crochet hook inside the stitch on the needle, then pass it on the cast on edge and pull the thread toward the 2 stitches, and so close it and move to the next one. When we have closed all the stitches, what we will see on the inside, we have created kind of a edge, a ribbed edge on the inside with the cast on tail, and over here I'm gonna have the end tail of. So I will cut my yarn, I finish the work, I cut the yarn and I will put it inside the finishing loop, so to create a little knot. The end thread and the start thread can be hidden inside the pattern of stitches as I showed before, and on the right side what we see is an almost invisible joint that will hide in what is the pattern, the knitted pattern of the bag. So at this point we can remove all the stitch markers that you have left on the bag. They are no longer needed. You can hide all the final yarns and tails. I will do so in a moment. And what we have left in front of us is the body of the bag united to the strap, finished and complete. Now on this bag you can add many accessories. It can be embroidered, decorated with patches, you can put buttons, a zipper, you can attach a carabiner to it, pins, you can make an inner lining with fabrics, you can make pockets. I just really love how you can customize it in many and different ways to create your unique Archer bag. I really hope you liked this tutorial, and I hope this bag will accompany you in many wonderful adventures. I hope you enjoy making your Archer bag. If you did finish the project, I would love to see it, so you can share it with me on social @needle, or I would really like to see it on Ravelry logged as a project. If you had fun spending time with me, I post lots of other videos. Most of them are in Italian, but all of them come with English subtitles. So I hope to see you around. Bye!